Alien survival game bans tools. Human cultivates soap, fire, and drinking water by day. 3. The Galactic Entertainment Network's most popular show, Primitive Endurance, had never featured a human contestant before. When Marcus Chen's application was accepted, the producers expected typical alien drama. Panic, quick elimination, perhaps some amusing flailing before inevitable failure. They were wrong. "Welcome, beings, to another cycle of Primitive Endurance," announced Zixtal, the show's crystalline host, her voice resonating across a million worlds. 10 contestants, 10 different species, 1 uninhabited planet. No tools, no technology, no outside assistance. Survive 30 rotations to claim the grand prize. The other contestants, a hulking Corvan warrior, a gas-breathing Nethys, a photosynthetic Verdani, and 6 others representing the galaxy's most survivable species, sized each other up with predatory confidence. Marcus, at barely 6 feet tall and weighing less than most of their limbs, drew dismissive glances. The Corvan, Thak Mor, snorted through his dual nostrils. "The soft skin won't last 2 rotations." Marcus smiled politely and surveyed the landscape. Rocky terrain, sparse vegetation, a small stream in the distance, and what looked like clay deposits near the water. His mind immediately began cataloging resources and possibilities. The elimination timer began. 30 days. The galaxy was watching. By sunset of the first day, 3 contestants had already activated their emergency beacons, including the overconfident Corvan, who discovered that raw meat from unknown fauna was not, in fact, universally digestible. The remaining 7 made crude shelters and waited for dawn, hungry and uncomfortable. Marcus had built a small lean-to, identified 17 edible plants, and constructed a basic water filter using sand, charcoal from burned wood, and cloth torn from his uniform. He'd also marked several clay deposits and gathered specific stones he'd need for tomorrow's projects. "The human demonstrates surprising competence," noted Zixatal to her audience, "though he spends considerable time on tasks that don't address immediate survival needs." Day 2 brought rain. The Nethys contestant struggled with the moisture. The Verdani couldn't photosynthesize through the clouds, and 2 more contestants quit. Marcus emerged from his waterproofed shelter, collected rainwater in improvised containers, and began working with the clay he'd gathered. The viewers watched in growing fascination as the human-shaped crude pots built a kiln from stones and somehow coaxed fire from wet conditions using a bow drill technique none of them had ever seen. While other contestants hunted desperately or searched for shelter, Marcus was manufacturing. "This behavior is highly irregular," observed Dr. Kethlin, the show's xenobiologist. "Most species focus on immediate caloric needs. This human seems to be planning." Day 3 dawned clear and bright. Marcus had clean drinking water bubbling through his filtration system, a smokehouse preserving excess fish he'd caught, and was stirring something that looked suspiciously like, "Is that soap?" gasped Zixtal. It was. Using rendered animal fat, wood ash for lye, and techniques passed down through human generations, Marcus had created basic soap. He'd also improved his shelter with clay-daubed walls, created fire-hardened spears for fishing, and established what could only be described as a small homestead. The remaining 4 contestants watched in bewilderment as the human washed himself and his clothes, then returned to expanding his collection of pottery and tools. "How?" demanded Veltara, the insectoid Kurzix, who'd been considered the favorite to win. "How do you know these things?" Marcus paused in his work of weaving grass into rope. "My species had to survive without technology for most of our history. Every human child learns these stories even if we don't practice them anymore. Fire from friction, soap from ash and fat, pottery from clay, we remember." But why do all this extra work? She pressed. You could survive on foraged food and stream water. Could I? Marcus gestured to his setup. What happens when the stream floods, or dries up, or when winter comes? What about infections, injuries, or spoiled food? Survival isn't just about today, it's about next month, next season, next year. The other contestants fell silent. Their survival strategies had focused entirely on immediate needs, day-to-day existence. The human was building civilization. By day 10, Marcus had a thriving micro-settlement. Clay pipes brought fresh water to his shelter. A sophisticated smoking and drying system preserved meat for weeks, and his soap production had expanded to include basic medicines from local plants. He'd even created primitive textiles and was experimenting with metal extraction from local ore deposits. The other contestants began following him around, hoping to learn. The galactic audience was mesmerized. "This is unprecedented," Dr. Kethlin reported to the show's producers. "The human has essentially recreated the foundational technologies of civilization in 10 rotations. Our psychological profiles never predicted this level of systematic thinking." "That's because you don't understand humans," Marcus said during one of his daily interviews with the cameras. He was weaving a basket while talking, his hands never stopping. "You see us as just another biological entity trying to survive. But humans don't just survive. We improve. We innovate. We take a problem and turn it into an opportunity." By day 15, the last 3 non-human contestants had formed what could only be called Marcus's apprentices, learning his techniques and contributing their own species' knowledge to his growing settlement. The competition had become a collaboration, with the human at its center not through dominance, but through pure utility. "I've never seen anything like this," Veltara admitted to the cameras. "In my species, we hoard survival knowledge, compete for resources. But the human shares everything, teaches everything. His settlement feeds all of us better than we ever fed ourselves alone." When the 30-day timer ended, Marcus had transformed, an empty patch of wilderness into the foundations of a small town. Clean water, preserved food, comfortable shelter, basic medicines, tools, weapons, and manufacturing capabilities, everything needed not just to survive, but to thrive. The galactic audience was speechless. They'd expected a survival show. Instead, they'd witnessed the birth of civilization, compressed into 30 days and orchestrated by a single human who treated impossibility as merely another engineering challenge. "Ladies, gentlemen, and assorted beings," announced Zixtal, her crystalline form shimmering with something that might have been awe. "I present to you not just the winner of primitive endurance, but perhaps the most remarkable contestant in the history of galactic entertainment, Marcus Chen of Earth." Marcus accepted his prize with characteristic human humility, then asked if he could keep the settlement running for the other species who wanted to learn his techniques. The galaxy had learned something important about humans that day. They didn't just survive, they built the future.